What's up everybody, Chef Michael Solovey here, back with another video pertaining to knife skills. Today we are focusing on vegetables that are going to be meant for roasting. So they're usually bigger chunks. This is the sort of thing that goes really quickly, so hopefully this makes your job a little bit easier and maybe a little bit of fun. So I'm just going to get right to it. We're starting with zucchini today. We've got a fibrous top to it, the stem end there. I'm going to cut that one off first. If we're looking for chunks on this one, I might do this in two different ways. So number one, I'm going to cut this in half, and then I'm going to cut this in lengthwise half again. And then I'm going to cut these into little segments. Again, about an inch shape, or inch wide in this one. And if I'm looking for wedges instead of little half moon shapes here, I'm just going to line all these puppies up and cut them like so, and then we're good to go. All right, so moving on, if we do want to cut these nice and thin, like say you're sauteing these, or you're not gonna roast them for very long, leave the whole zucchini whole, just like that, cut it into these little discs. They're much thinner, and then if you need to cut these down into half moon shapes, like so, wedges, turn them, bada bing, bada boom, set to go, ready to rock and roll with some fennel. Okay, so I've got some fennel here. Love fresh fennel, love to use this as much as I possibly can. Definitely something I'm gonna use my mandolin for if I get a chance. I'm looking to slice this nice and thin. Keep in mind that the stalks can replace celery in certain recipes as long as you don't mind that licorice flavor, and also the fronds. I don't have a lot of fronds on this one here. These can be used as herbs on the top as well. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to cut this slice it nice and thin, is I'm going to take these stalks, get rid of those ones. Now I got the rest of my bulb down like that. I'm going to use my mandolin. I'm just going to slice down like so. Makes them really thin, makes them very nice. You get a lot of these little Star Trek cuts, I call them. Very thin shapes and very consistent in the way that they cook. All right, moving on. If you really wanted to, you could just use a knife on this one. I recommend you use a very sharp knife, but it's a little bit unstable. So sometimes what I'll do to stabilize my fennel is I'll cut a flat edge to it so it's not wobbling all over the place like that, and then I'll slice it nice and thin with my knife if that's a choice I want to do there. Moving on to a tomato. We're looking for a cord stemmed and quartered tomato here, and believe it or not, we're actually going to do this in the opposite order. So I'm first going to quarter the tomato with the stem on, trying to keep the skin side down as often as I possibly can on any tomatoes or peppers for that matter as well. And then you can see that I've got this little wedge here, and I'm just going to slide down towards the stem at an angle, cutting not only the core out, but also that stem. That goes bye-bye. Nothing but delicious tomato is left here. And then again, skin side down, I'm cutting this into my 1-inch chunks like so for ratatouille and whatever else you need to do for roasting those guys. Bell pepper, beautiful thing here. Got a really nice method for this. Using the heel of my knife to get down towards that center, but once I hit that center, I don't cut through the bell pepper. I just rotate it around to find that cut on the other side. I give it a little twist to pop the top off. I do the same thing on the other side, and I can go straight through this time. So now I've got my rings. I take this to a garbage can and I stamp out all the seeds to try to get as many out so I'm not making a big mess. As many as I can out of there. All right, so now we've got this. Cut this in half. And then if you've still got some seeds or those little spires on the inside there, you can do a little bit of cleanup work and get those out really quickly. Now you've got this half like so. If you're looking for 1-inch pieces, about half lengthwise there, and then you can start to cut these into smaller segments, ready to rock and roll, looking beautiful. There we go. Okay, red onion. If we're looking for thin slice versus a larger cut, remember that these thin slices in the roasting process are going to break down a lot. Not necessarily a bad thing, but you're not going to get the crunch of the onion. If you're looking for the crunch of the onion, I'll show you a second moderation to the cut here. But first I'm going to show you the one for slicing them nice and thin. So I cut the onion in half like so, not along the equator, but from North Pole to South Pole. And then I don't cut the root end off, I cut the shoot end off. So the root is still intact here at the bottom. And then I'm going for that first thick layer of the onion. Not the thin skin, but the first thick layer, making sure I'm getting anything that's really fibrous out of the way. And then you can see there's sort of like a little rainbow there. And then I'm just gonna sort of follow this rainbow around, making cuts that avoid the root end. I'm angling the knife so that it hits the center of the onion every time that I cut, but I'm not cutting all the way through. Notice I'm pulling my knife back towards myself. Again, keeping that root end intact so that although this is all cut, you can see my little angles that are there, but the root end is holding everything together. And then when I want to take this and turn this into a bunch of little julienne thinly sliced onions, I turn it around and cut that root end off, and now I've got a bunch of these wonderful julienne onions going on here, thinly sliced, ready to rock and roll. If I'm looking to cut these a little bit bigger for roasting, again, cut that shoot end off, not the root end first. Take off the first thick layer. And then say I'm roasting these or maybe putting these in a stock or a broth or something like that. I'm going for the root end cutting off right now. So that's not holding anything together anymore. But I cut in half lengthwise, and then I cut my segments into my 1-inch size, or whatever it is that I'm really looking for. And that's how you have something that's going to hold up a little bit better through the roasting process, not break down, still give you a little bit of the crunch when you're ready to eat that. Okay, so sweet potato. Moving on now to sweet potato. And any kind of potato or anything that's really weird shaped like sweet potatoes tend to be, you've got these pointy ends. That's what I'm going to attack first. While the potato is whole, I'm going to cut those off. Now I'm trying to keep the skin on these as often as I possibly can. Trying to keep the skin on as many vegetables as I eat as I possibly can because there's a ton of nutrients inside of there. But these are going to dictate my size for the most part. I'm going to make my first decision on size as soon as I cut these tips off. So then relative to this, I'm going to attack the rest of the sweet potato, cutting it in half lengthwise first. First, find that cutting board, okay, so it can be a little bit tough because they're very fibrous. And then just closing the gap and sliding back through. Now it's in half. Do that one more time. And now keep these guys around for a guide, and you're just going to cut them into about the same size. We're looking again for about 1 inch on this size here to finish the job. Remember that these need to roast a little bit longer. So in most recipes where I'm roasting vegetables that include sweet potatoes or any other really fibrous, starchy vegetable, I'm putting those in the oven ahead of time, covering them with oil, salt and pepper, popping them in the oven for a good like 15-20 minutes extra versus all those other very watery vegetables that we were dealing with before. Last one on our list here today is the asparagus. Decent sized asparagus today. Sometimes you get them, they're really, really thick like that. I like to use a vegetable peeler to thin them down if that is the case. But really with any asparagus, what you're looking to do is you find that woody end. They talk about trimming the woody end. And you can feel that the density is very different on this lower end than it is for the rest of the stalk. So all you need to do is take it about 1.5 inches to 2 inches towards the bottom and then just snap it forward, and where it naturally breaks, that's where you're going to find that the rest of this is going to be nice and soft, while this is really fibrous and a little bit too hard to eat. Guys, if you have any questions, get a hold of me. I'm happy to help with any other knife skills questions you might have or help in any way that I can. I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.